The human gastrointestinal tract operates as a highly specialized internal economy. Down on the intestinal floor, trillions of tiny biological agents manage a constant, high-stakes exchange of nutrients and chemical signals. This sprawling marketplace is densely populated. Over 50 different phyla of microbial residents collaborate here, working around the clock to keep your immune system and energy levels stable. When this system runs smoothly, these microbes exist in a strict symbiotic relationship with your human cells. You provide a steady supply of real currency, natural sugars and complex carbohydrates, and in return, the microbes process these raw materials into essential vitamins and biological defense signals. Artificial sweeteners are widely marketed as a dietary loophole, a way to get the sweetness without the calories. But inside this precise microbial economy, they act as counterfeit currency. Because these synthetic molecules lack actual caloric value, the microbial traders cannot process them for fuel. They accept the currency based on its shape, only to realize the biochemical backing is completely missing. A zero-calorie label does not equal a zero-impact biological event. Introducing this fake money into the gut initiates a chain reaction of false processing that systematically starves the very microbes responsible for maintaining your metabolic health. To see exactly where this breakdown begins, we have to look closely at the surface of a single intestinal wall cell. This is where the body installs its primary currency scanners. Specific protein structures known as T1R3 receptors identify the molecular signature of sweetness, but they lack verification, detecting the shape of sugar without checking for caloric energy. When an artificial sweetener locks in, it triggers a false alarm, immediately releasing incretins as metabolic messengers. These incretin messengers travel outward, signaling the entire digestive system to upregulate its internal machinery and prepare for a massive influx of energy. The body readies itself for a feast, but the energy never arrives. This chart compares how different counterfeit compounds sabotage the scanners. High-intensity synthetics like neotame cause aggressive false signaling of a nutrient influx, while sucralose creates a state of chronic overactivation, constantly misfiring the incretin release mechanism. By continuously hammering these receptors with zero-calorie molecules, the physical sensation of sweetness becomes completely decoupled from actual metabolic utility. This creates a critical systemic glitch. The constant false alarms wear down the reliability of the scanners, derailing the body's natural timing and making it significantly harder to accurately regulate real blood sugar when actual carbohydrates eventually enter the system. Down on the gut floor, microbial traders receive the false signals and ramp up production, anticipating a massive surge of real energy. Specialized maintenance crews, like the bacteria Akkermansia mucinifila, rely heavily on this anticipated fuel. They require real, fermentable carbohydrates to survive and perform their work. When the fake currency drops into the marketplace, these microbes attempt to metabolize it. Because the molecules offer no raw material to break down, the bacteria's internal fermentation machinery simply stalls out from exhaustion. This graph illustrates the immediate casualty of stalled fermentation, a severe drop in short-chain fatty acids. Microbes fail to produce butyrate, a vital good that supplies roughly 70% of the operational energy required by the human cells forming the intestinal walls. Starved of their primary fuel, the beneficial microbial populations collapse. The precise balance between major bacterial neighborhoods, measured by scientists as the firmicutes to bacteroidetes ratio, rapidly destabilizes into a state of severe dysbiosis. This starvation initiates a total breakdown in the global supply chain. Without butyrate, the physical infrastructure loses its main power source, leaving the biological walls of your intestines stripped of their primary defense. In a collapsed microbial economy, survival takes precedence over collaboration. The remaining bacteria abandon their roles as honest merchants and adopt highly aggressive, pathogenic behaviors. Opportunistic strains adapt to the harsh environment by rapidly clustering together and secreting sticky, protective shields known as biofilms to hide from immune police. Desperate for any available energy, these pathogenic microbes attempt a process called enzymatic scavenging. They deploy specialized enzymes to violently break down the synthetic sweetener chemicals in a frantic search for hidden caloric value. Forcing biology to process these artificial xenobiotics carries extreme risk. The metabolic effort to break them apart produces chemical byproducts far more dangerous than the original additive. When artificial sweeteners are scavenged, bacteria turn out a new metabolite, cyclohexylamine. This byproduct is highly poisonous, acting as a toxic gas that poisons the local neighborhood. A distinct mechanism of failure occurs with the introduction of heavy, low-value polyols, creating what scientists call the sugar-alcohol paradox. This schematic shows how compounds like xylitol are notoriously difficult for the gut to absorb and bypass normal fermentation entirely. Instead, they accumulate in the intestines and generate a massive osmotic load, violently dragging surrounding fluid straight into the gut corridor. This physical flash flood causes severe bloating and laxative effects, but the clinical risks escalate further in the blood. High concentrations of circulating xylitol are actively prothrombotic, meaning they significantly increase the risk of blood clots and cardiovascular distress. The local microbiome is now actively hostile. The host faces a localized disaster zone driven by toxic chemical laundering and massive internal fluid pressures that physically batter the intestinal walls. To understand how this local chaos threatens the entire body, we look at the physical security locks holding the epithelial cells together, known as tight junctions. These junctions require constant energy to remain secure. Stripped of their butyrate fuel supply and bathed in corrosive metabolic byproducts like cyclohexylamine, these critical biological locks dissolve. The structural sabotage pushes the wall cells past their limits. The extreme stress triggers apoptosis, a programmed cell death, where the cells essentially trigger their own self-destruction, opening physical gaps in the intestinal barrier. This creates a porous border, widely known as leaky gut. Pieces of bacterial contraband, specifically lipopolysaccharides or LPS, slip freely through these newly formed gaps and drop straight into the host's sterile bloodstream. The moment LPS breaches the bloodstream, the body's immune system detects the foreign debris and mounts a violent response. Immune cells release powerful chemical signals, such as TNF-alpha, calling for heavy reinforcement. This desperate attempt to clear the contraband triggers an emergency state of chronic, aggressive inflammation. What began as a localized processing error on the gut floor has breached the vascular system. The host is pushed into a state of systemic endotoxemia, where continuous bacterial leaking creates a toxic environment that inflames and damages the entire human body. Despite the severe structural breakdown and metabolic collapse caused by these synthetic additives, the biological damage leaves a clear footprint. It is entirely measurable and, in many cases, reversible. Scientists use high-tech census tools like metagenomic profiling to map this destruction. This technology plots the exact, unique microbial baseline of an individual's internal city, identifying every surviving traitor. This mapping isolates the responders, the specific individuals whose microbial layers are uniquely vulnerable to the severe metabolic crashes induced by fake sugars. By diagnosing exactly which counterfeit variables are causing the economic failure, researchers employ precision nutrition. They remove the offending chemicals and prescribe highly targeted prebiotics designed to rebuild specific beneficial microbial neighborhoods. When a local economy is completely broken and dysbiosis takes over, physicians execute a total market correction. Through fecal microbia transplantation, an entirely new guild of healthy, productive microbial traders is introduced to repair the broken marketplace walls. We possess the tools to read the gut as a precise biological ledger. By discarding the illusion that artificial sweeteners are an inert dietary loophole, we eliminate the counterfeit currency and actively rebuild the foundations of human metabolic health.